Welcome to Building People, Companies, and Careers, brought to you by AccruePartners. I'm Amy Pack.
And I'm Patty Comer. We're your host on this journey through the vibrant business landscape in the Queen City.
This podcast is an extension of our mission statement at AccruePartners, where we have spent over 20 years fostering connections and building relationships.
Whether you're a client, candidate, or business influencer in Charlotte, this podcast is for you.
We are immensely grateful for your support throughout our journey, and now through this podcast, we're excited to share the stories that have defined our path.
So let's dive in.
Let's do it. Today, we're excited to have with us as a special guest, Susan Maron, Chief of Staff of Nova Advisory. Welcome, Susan.
Thanks, Amy. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so it worked out perfect that you drove in from Atlanta to interview consultants, and we were filming in our offices today. So I am so thankful for the flexibility you had to join us on the podcast.
It was such an easy drive, and I'm so thrilled to be able to be this close to be able to just make it in person.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad you made it safely and look forward to having a conversation today. So I always like to start out by asking the typical interview question. Tell me about yourself.
Sure. Happy to. It's a little bit of a journey, so buckle up.
All right.
My current role now is Chief of Staff at Nova Advisory. Nova Advisory is a consulting company that has one arm that does one-stream delivery and one arm that does advisory services. And for those who might be listening and don't know, OneStream is an enterprise or corporate performance management solution for complex corporations that sometimes have multi-currency or complex ERP systems. And the advisory side is really more of a transformational effort that we have because we have people that are really skilled in this area who've done it for years and years and years, agnostic of OneStream, but never competitive with OneStream. My role at Nova is Chief of Staff, and that means for me that I drive strategy out from our CEO and our board, and I take issues that come inbound either from clients or from our own organization that bubble up and help figure out appropriate ways to resolve those issues and make sure that we're always in growth mode to grow as a corporation and get stronger and organically grow our people. And maybe we might have some acquisitions in the future so that we can become a bigger, stronger company. But that's not where I started my career at all. So the journey may be more interesting to some people than others. I think of a career journey as almost like people relationships that you meet along the way. And wherever you are at this moment in time is informed by all the relationships that you've had along the way or all the careers you've had along the way. And for me, it might be more than others. I started out my first love in college as a journalism major, and I quickly realized halfway through that somebody else brought something more interesting to the table, which was not what I do today. It was landscape architecture and land planning. And a friend came over.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. A friend came over to visit our apartment one day and laid out a roll of drawings. And I said, "What is that? I want to do it. Tell me about what you're doing in life. I need to understand what that is and why it matters. And it's colorful and it's creative and just bring me into your world." And the next day I changed my major. I graduated with that degree, and I spent the first section of my career in land planning, which for people who don't know about that, it can mean different things. So for what I did, it was a large, complex commercial sites. So think about like a college campus. Before it was a college campus or a hospital campus or a shopping center, what was it before? It was either a field or it was a mountain or it was some trees, just blank space waiting to be developed. And somebody has to plan all that out and figure out how to take something that is nothing or that is not what it is in the future and envision that. And it's blank space, and it really unleashes your creativity and taught me a lot about not just creativity, but also people in politics and how that all works together and how you can develop environmentally responsibly, but also for profit was really interesting lesson in life. And then in 2008, the economy fell apart.
Yes.
And we had to make some quick decisions. My husband was a mortgage broker at the time, so neither one of our careers was going very far at that point. And we moved back to Atlanta, where you and I know each other from years and years ago. And I took kind of a temporary role in a daycare, directing and managing there while we try to figure out what we're doing with our careers. And I really fell in love with the whole concept of what we feed kids and how that matters later on in life, and took an overhaul to the food program at one daycare and converted them 100% from canned and frozen to fresh ingredients. And along the way, realized that it ended up being a financial savings for them too. And that was an unexpected result of the process. And then when the economy started to turn back around, I turned back around, went back to the professional world, and spent a lot of time in healthcare at a Fortune 14 company where I was in the pre-sale and sales space and fell in love with client services and learning about these large national companies that we have here in the United States and what they do and why it works and how to make them successful and how to help them along the way. And whenever you stopped and started a new client, it felt like starting a new job. So it was like this refreshed feeling of I'm doing it all again. And it feels like you're learning something every bit of the day. And then on the pre-sale side, also, negotiating how to work on the competitive side. So we have a competition in there. How do we compete? What's our differentiator? How do you write an RFP? What are the right answers? Those are really interesting lessons learned. And it helped me polish my corporate skills, but also brought me back to my roots of journalism and really perfecting the art of the written word and how that can kind of get your foot in the door when you thought you were out. And then from there, I was considering a career in consulting. I was exposed to consulting on the carrier side. And I talked to a really great mutual friend of ours who said, you know what, if you're considering doing that and you're considering consulting at all, why don't you consider financial consulting? And I said, what are you talking about? I am not equipped to do that. I have no skills in financial world. That's not going to work for me. And she said, well, it didn't stop you from all your other career moves in the past. Right. So why don't you give it a whirl? What's the harm in trying it out? And I thought, okay, she's right. So I tried it out and I've been here ever since. And it combines kind of my love of all of those things into one career that I've really enjoyed doing for the last several years.
Yeah, that's a great journey. So now how long have you been with Nova at this point?
5 years.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. So that bleeds right into kind of a transition of when you think about building people, companies, and careers, you've been with lots of you've had different careers doing different things in different industries, which I think offers a lot of value, especially in the type of business that you're in today and in the role that you're in today. But when you think about building people, companies, and careers, what comes to mind?
Yeah. When I hear you say it, I think of the verb in the sentence. The building is the active verb. It is just ever iterative, ever evolving. And my experience tells me if you're not continually building, you're doing it wrong. If you've built it and it's done, you get stale and you stagnate and you don't learn and you don't grow, both as a corporation and as a person. So careers and people themselves continually are building a skill set, a conversational piece, a learned talent. It doesn't matter what the thing is. Building is the active part, I think.
Yeah.
And people need help to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been our tagline for almost 23 years now. And we always, it resonates with clients and candidates. And without, building, you've got to have a foundation and you're always working on building and fixing, right? We all, when you own a home, you're always doing a renovation to it, right? When you think of Nova, we've had an opportunity to work with you on one consulting engagement, and we're super fortunate and blessed to have you here today to interview some consultants. But share with us, if you don't mind, a little bit about the journey and the experience that you've had in working with our team.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So, I think, I thought that you might be able to solve a different need for me. So one day I reached out to you knowing that we have an old connection and asked you a question, and you answered me right away within, 2 minutes of me sending the email. And I was thrilled with the response. And you also acknowledged it wasn't an area that you could help with. And so it led me to think, okay, well, there might be other areas where she can help, and look how responsive she is. So I'm imagining everybody at her company is the same way if that's how she leads. And so the next time I had an opportunity where I really needed to fill in with a valuable resource, and it had to be the right resource the first time, I thought of you and approached you. And I was, thrilled is probably an understatement. I was over the moon that the timing that you demonstrated back to me was the same timing I got with everybody here at Accrue. And I was able to place a person faster than I even thought I could. So I wasn't ready by the time you were ready. And I thought I needed it yesterday. And you were able to really help. Your whole company really came together to help that way.
Well, I appreciate that. We do operate with a sense of urgency, and you've been great on the client side to respond and reciprocate with that.
Yeah, 2 ways.
Yeah, it is 2 ways. I always tell people takes 2 to tango, and we can only do our job and operate at the speed in which people respond to us. And feedback's really important. And, obviously anytime we start and develop a new partnership, every company's different, different needs, different culture. And so without that feedback and that responsiveness, it's important to move the process forward.
Yeah. And you were great to ask for feedback yourself after the first round. And I remember asking you, well, are you just doing this for me because you know me from the past? And your answer was, no, I do this for every single client we have. Ask for personal feedback. And I think that means a lot as somebody who's really the leadership at the company, that you take an active role in each client. Talks a lot about personal touch.
Yeah. So, I always say feedback's a gift.
Yeah.
And I tell our clients and even our candidates and internally, like, without the feedback, we can't get better, and we don't know what we don't know. And it gives us an opportunity to evaluate internally where we could do some training, or where we may have gaps. So that is very important. So as you're on this journey with Nova, you, I guess, tell us what the next couple of years and the journey looks like ahead for you.
Yeah, great question. So for me personally, it might be different from our company, just in terms of role. So I don't think that there's any greater role that I could have at this moment in time than the one that I've been bestowed, which is our chief of staff role. I'm privileged to work with our CEO. So I don't see my role particularly changing much, other than the example for our company, which is our company will have astronomical growth over the next several years. We definitely are a growth strategy mindset, and this field of both OneStream and the field of advisory has more need than it does people who are qualified to deliver it. So we see nothing but positive growth in the industry.
You're looking at your customers and finance transformation in OneStream. Are there common themes that you're seeing out in the market with the companies that you're working with?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest trend that we've seen is turnover. And it feels like it was post-COVID. Maybe we're just more acutely aware of it post-COVID, but it feels like the culture shift changed maybe right at the same time there was a demographic change in generations too. And that has led to people being either dissatisfied with their job or getting tapped with opportunities elsewhere. The world of recruitment has been explosive. So if you're just an average Joe, you're getting, 15, 20 recruitment emails or LinkedIn messages regularly.
Right.
The field of experience with OneStream implementation partners is narrow, and the field of experience in OneStream is narrow. So if you're qualified, you're one of few. And with advisory, similarly, it's not that there aren't many people in that field. It's that there are a few people who have done it and done it well and have proven that they are really great in that area. So we're seeing turnover in the industries, leading to more help required by us as consultants to step in and fill the gap while they can go backfill or figure out how they're going to absorb those roles internally.
Great. So I'm going to go back to this building people, companies, and careers, because I heard you talking about your journey. And I do remember you being in Charleston in the land planning, architectural business. And then you've obviously done different things along the way. I don't think I realized that you worked and ran a daycare, but it doesn't surprise me. You transformed them, knowing what you do today. But what would be some of the common threads that when you look back on your career and your journey that really got you to where you are now? Because not everybody has the opportunity to do so many different things in so many different industries, and you've really done that.
Yeah, that's such a good question. Two words come immediately to mind. One is the willingness to take initiative and the expectation. So my willingness to take initiative, and then the expectation on from employers that your employees will take initiative. kind of goes unspoken sometimes. You expect somebody to behave a certain way, but you don't tell them. They don't know, so they stand back, and there's this big gap in between. And when you hire somebody that's willing to take initiative and take a risk, you close the gap, right or wrong. They might not do exactly what it is that you're asking, but there's forward momentum and motion as an example. And the second one would be adaptability. Being able to shift gears and not feel really married to one idea or one answer is so critical to life, really, to
Right.
just being a human, but also to, I think, success in all careers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So looking back at the partnership that we've been able to form in the success what we've had, when you look at that compared, obviously you've worked with other firms in the past as you've built Nova and got, where it is today. I guess share with me, as I like feedback, as we've already discovered, what has been a key differentiator in partnering with AccruePartners as you've looked to add to your team?
Right. Several. The couple that come to mind really are what I said before, which is the speed at which you answer, which seems like an easy thing. That shouldn't be a differentiator. Unfortunately, it is. And that says a lot about your company, but it also says a lot of negative things about the partners that are out there, because you feel like you are just one of many, one of a number, versus a real human with real needs and a corporation that is on a timeline. So that's number one. We talked about that a little bit. I think a second piece was we looked at another company that was larger than Accrue for some of the same solutions. And what we found quickly was that this company is great and they're well known, and because they are great and well known, it's like the red tape is out of control, and my solutions all of a sudden weren't as important as they had to work down their checklist of, does this meet our criteria? And I'm going to give you a minimum threshold and it felt like the T's and C's were longer than the solution and the requirements that I was giving in the first place. And it just felt really imbalanced to me. Contrast that with my experience at Accrue. It was a conversation first. It wasn't a let's sign a document. It was let's just talk first and make sure we are even in the same ballpark. Don't share anything confidential, and then we'll talk about the contract. Then the contract felt natural, and it just felt like a piece of the puzzle that you just work through quickly, which also was painless. Let me just tell you that. That can be really painful with some of the vendors that we work with and some of the organizations. The legal process was seamless. But then I think I appreciated the ability to hear myself say out loud something that I then said, let me take it back, and I need to say it differently. And I'm changing my requirements on the fly post-signature to say, I actually, after hearing myself say it and hearing what you asked, I might have a different set of needs altogether. Can you accommodate? And the answer 100% of the time was either yes or let's check and we'll get right back to you. And that was absolutely done. So the adaptability, the question you just asked me, I would say you guys have given that back to me in spades, to be adaptable on the fly based on whatever it is that I am telling you is my need of the day. And what a wonderful gift to be able to give this ever-changing corporate landscape.
Well, we always try to say that we work to be very flexible. Every company's different. They have different needs, different culture, different subjectives. And part of that is building that partnership. And I know when I look at, companies to work with from a AccruePartners perspective, I want that same thing in return. I don't want to be put in a box.
Right.
I want to be looked at for who we are and what we need. And I think you said it in the very beginning. The first time you came and asked me a question, I'm like, nope, we can't help you with that, but this is what we can do.
Right.
So I appreciate that. So let's move to rapid fire, if we will. When you look back on this interesting career that you've had, what was your first career memory?
Yeah. I don't know if it's the first, but it's the one that stands out the most, which is as the very newest employee at the land planning firm in Charleston. The owner at the time was introducing me at a big quarterly meeting and told me that I had to stand on the table to introduce myself.
What?
And I looked at him and I was like, really? And he said, yeah. And I started to climb on the table before everybody in the room was like, no, we're kidding. It's a joke. Please don't climb on the table in those heels. Get down. And I fell for it. And I was so embarrassed at the time. And now I look back at it with such fondness that that's the kind of crew they were, that it was okay to do that. And they had done it with, I didn't know this. They had done it with everyone in the room. Everyone has gone through the same initiation that way. So it was a fun way to remember that company.
That's a good one. Who would you, or if you had an experience to describe as your best boss or not so, or least memorable boss, maybe we'll rephrase it that way. Which, is there anything that comes to mind or a story there?
Couldn't narrow down the best ones because I've had so many, and probably what they all have in common is the people forward part of who they are. It's about you as a human and how you work in an organization versus you're a number and you check a box somewhere. I can say definitively the worst. I have one individual in mind, and I think what sets her apart so much from everybody else was that she didn't stop to assess the landscape and to see what worked well and what didn't before making wholesale changes. And when you don't stop and see current state before making changes, you're inadvertently throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And there are some really good things that I feel like get thrown out when people just come in and act like a bull in a china shop instead of observing first.
Yeah, seek to understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. What is a saying that you're known for?
So what? and not in the worst way, but okay, we've talked a lot in this meeting. So what is the action? What does it mean? What is the next step? So what were we here for? What are we trying to achieve?
Yeah, love it.
Right. It sounds smarmy sometimes, but it really is. It helps people to understand that the hour, the 3 hours, the 5 hours, the half hour that we just spent has a purpose and it's going forward to mean something.
Yeah. And kind of what are they thinking? Like, what is their thought process behind that? Okay. So I'll transition into March is Women's History Month. You have a daughter, if I'm not mistaken.
I do, yeah.
She's how old?
14.
14. So very formidable years.
Yes.
You have a son too. Let's not forget about him. How old is he?
15.
15. So when you think about Women's History Month and how you can impact younger women as they begin to enter the workforce, what are some things that come to mind for you? And maybe also second phase of that question is, what are some things individuals did for you to help you in your career journey?
Okay, great set of questions. I would say to women who are just starting out their careers, try to think like you would if you were alone in the room and not if there were a lot of people in that room with you. In other words, as a woman, a lot of times we're in a room with a lot of men. Right. Would you behave differently if it was just women in the room? Would you behave differently if it was just you in the room? Try to find that center core of self and be that person, be that individual. And when you're not, it never feels just right. And once you find that and figure it out, you just feel more relaxed in the world.
Right.
And to answer the second part of the question, I heard maybe 2 years ago something that I think about almost every single day. It happened to be advice from a woman in a women's leadership panel. So maybe that's why I'm relating it to this, but it doesn't have to be advice for a woman. It's advice for anybody, which is when your boss in any given role hired you, they hired you for your head, not your hands, which speaks for itself.
Yeah, it does. That's great. Wonderful. Well, Susan, I have to say it has been an absolute pleasure. I know that you've mentioned several occasions of we go way back. I'm sure some people are wondering what all that means. So I'll give a little bit of a glimpse. So Susan and I, we both grew up in Atlanta in the same community and ran in some of the same circles. And it's just wonderful to have life come full circle and reconnect with you and an opportunity to do business with you. And 30-something years later, having you here and sharing some business opportunities. So I appreciate you sharing your story and spending your time with me.
Likewise. I see this as a wonderful gift. So thank you for the time.
Yes, thank you.